Alright, lads and lasses, it's that time of year again where I react to my Premier League predictions from earlier in the season. Let's just say some were spot on, others absolute disasters, but let's get into it. Looking at Southampton, I nailed that one, absolute spot on, correct, cold take, but got it correct, predicting Southampton to go down in 20th place. And moving on to Ipswich, I predicted Ipswich to finish 18th place, unfortunately 1 place off, as they ended up going down in 19th place. And then moving on to Leicester, and I predicted Leicester to go down in 19th place. If Ipswich and Leicester had just flipped, I would have got this one right. But almost nailed that relegation spot on both of them teams. If only they had been in the opposite positions. So Leicester, of course, went down in 18th, and I predicted them to go down in 19th, which was where Ipswich went down. Moving on to Wolves, and I predicted Wolves to finish 15th in the league, and it was close, but not great. It was only 1 place off of where Wolves really finished, which was 16th in the league. Moving on to West Ham, 9th place I predicted West Ham, and of course they ended up finishing 14th. So I was giving them way too much credit. Bit of a drop off there by West Ham. Of course, Graham Potter coming in at the London Stadium for West Ham, and obviously it was always going to be a bit of a different situation going on there with David Moyes no longer at the team. So obviously things were going to be a bit different going forward. But I predicted them 9th, they finished 14th. So a bit of a drop off there by West Ham. 17th place, I predicted Everton to finish, and they ended up finishing in 13th place. They were not that bad after all, to be honest. I thought, they would have been going into that 17th place position, just outside the relegation zone, but they did much better than that, and of course finished in 13th place. Obviously David Moyes returning back to his old kicking ground of Goodison Park as well, and back to his old club in Everton. So obviously things helped along the line with that. So that was obviously one of the factors to why they ended up finishing in 13th place. But I got that one wrong as well. 13th place I predicted Crystal Palace, and of course they finished 12th place. Another near miss. Only 1 place off where they actually finished. And again, moving on to Fulham, where I predicted them 12th place, and again another pretty close prediction, as they ended up finishing in, of course, 11th place. So again, really close on this one, but I did nail Brentford, who finished in 10th place. Let's go another one right, at least. So we did get another one right there with Brentford finishing in 10th place. And then on to Bournemouth, who I predicted 11th place, and they were much better than I expected, to be honest. Areola did a really good job there with Bournemouth, and ended up getting them to 9th place in the league. So very close to where my prediction was, only 2 places off. So again, a pretty close one, but I did get that wrong on Bournemouth. Moving on to Brighton, in 14th place I predicted Brighton earlier in the season, and they finished 8th. They just keep improving, and they keep proving people wrong, and they got their finish in 8th place, just missing out on European football for next season. And Forest is the surprising one here. I predicted them 16th place. I thought they were going to have another relegation battle, but they surprised everybody. I mean, wow. Forest in Europe next season. Yes, it's Europa Conference League, but at one point during the season, they were right in there for Champions League football next season, Forest. Nuno Espirito Santos has done some fantastic stuff there at the City ground with Forest, and I'm sure they're going to have a pretty tough season next season, however, with them playing European football, so they're going to have to invest heavily in their squad going forward. But man, Forest surprised everybody with that one, and like I say, I put them 16th. They ended up finishing in 7th place in the league and could have finished in Champions League if not for the drop in form towards the back end of the season. Moving on to Villa, I predicted Villa to finish 7th in the league, and again, not far off. A solid season by Villa. I thought they would have had a tougher season with them playing in the Champions League, of course, but they did really well to get themselves quite far through the Champions League and also to compete in the Premier League like they did and get themselves Europa League football. Again, they could have been Champions League football as well, but they dropped off towards the back end of the season, so missed out on that Champions League football. Chelsea, who I predicted 8th place, and Chelsea ended up finishing 4 places above in 4th. Big bounce back, so fair play to Chelsea on that one. Of course, Chelsea didn't look that good, to be honest, going into the season, and it looked like they were going to have a bit of a difficult one, but they bounced back and got themselves right in there for Champions League football, and of course have got themselves a Europa Conference League or Conference League final as well, of course, coming up. So they'll be hoping to win that as well and get themselves a cup, as well as getting that Champions League football back at Stamford Bridge. And then moving on to the top bunch, of course, where we'll look at the top of the table, and Spurs are predicted 6th place, and they ended up having an absolute stinker of a season. Spurs ended up having an absolute stinker of a season. They obviously ended up winning the Europa League, but man, did they stink up the Premier League this season, Spurs. Right the way down in 17th place in the league. If there hadn't have been for teams like Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton going down, we probably would have seen Spurs being relegated from the Premier League this season. I mean, they were absolutely dreadful. And I've got to say, Ange Postecoglou probably saved his job for next season for a little bit, winning that Europa League. But man, did they stink up the Premier League. And of course, I got that one wrong because I said 6th and they ended up 17th in the league. 5th place, I says, for Liverpool, and of course Liverpool ended up having a much better season than that. They ended up being the Premier League champions under Arne Slot. First season for Slot in the Premier League, so I thought, it's going to be a bit of a tough one. It's going to be a situation where they have to re-evaluate themselves from the Jurgen Klopp era to going into the Slot era, and obviously it didn't work out the way I was thinking it would, and it worked out in the way of Slot winning his first Premier League trophy in his first season at Liverpool. But I think it will be now a tough test for him coming next season, because now the expectations are high. He's won the Premier League in his first season, so now, Liverpool fans and rival fans, neutral fans are going to be looking at Liverpool. There's going to be more pressure there come next season. And then also there's the added factor of people figuring out your tactics, figuring out how you approach the games and how you play the games as well. So I think it will be a much tougher season for Liverpool next season, but we'll talk about that when we get around to the point for the Premier League predictions for next season, which is quite a while away. But I predicted Liverpool 5th and they finished 1st. Moving on to Man United, and I predicted them in 4th place, and again, man, absolutely stunk up the Premier League. Man United finishing down in 15th place, again similar to Spurs If it hadn't been for Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton going down, and there had been a bit of a tougher test there from the 3 teams coming up into the league, then I think we would have seen Man United being relegated from the Premier League. But it is what it is. They finished 15th place. They lost the Europa League final to Spurs as well. So there will be absolutely no European football for Man United next season. And I've got to say, that is absolutely crazy when you consider, being a person like myself who has grew up in the 90s, born in the 90s, supporting Newcastle United, to see Man United, not having European football next season is absolutely crazy. But I've got to say, man, what a stinker by Man U, and what a stinker by Spurs as well. They absolutely stunk up the Premier League with their performances this season. And now Man United will not be playing in Europe next season. No Champions League, no Europa League, no Conference League for Man United. They are completely focused entirely on Premier League, FA Cup and League Cup, and that will have to be their focus next season. And I'm sure that's not going to go down well for the finances for them neither, because they're in a lot of trouble with finances right now, Man United, and they could have really done with playing in Europe next season, but they will not be there. Moving on to Newcastle, my team, Newcastle United. I predicted us to finish 3rd in the league, and unfortunately, I got this one wrong. I didn't get it really wrong, but only moving down 2 places, almost got it right. If, of course, we had have been able to pick up them results towards the back end of the season, I would have actually done better than what my prediction was as well, because there was a point where we could have finished 2nd in the table, but Newcastle finished 5th, still in the top 5, and a really good season all in all for us Newcastle United fans, picking up the first trophy in 70 years domestically, 56 years since we last won the Intercities Fairs Cup in 1969. So really, really good season for us all the same. We got the Champions League football. We got ourselves that hoodoo of not winning the cup in 56, 70 years, so it's now looking like it's going to be a really good, promising season next season with Champions League football back at St James's Park and money to spend in the transfer window this summer. It's going to be a really, really good season indeed. And with that being said, let's move on to Man City, who I said to finish 2nd in the league. And of course, again, very, very close. Thought Pep would have grinded it out in the end, and he did to a degree, because they were much lower than where they were finishing, with them about 4th or 5th at one point. And then, of course, they found themselves off form and found themselves finishing 3rd in the Premier League. I did predict them 2nd. They finished 3rd, so only 1 place off. And that takes us on to Arsenal, the last team on the list. I said Arsenal to finish as the champions, and of course, close but no cigar for Arsenal. They ended up finishing 2nd in the league. So again, a very near miss on this prediction of Arsenal to win the Premier League. I thought it would have been this season where Arteta got it. He tried and failed. And I thought this season would have been the season that he got it. But again, bottled it at the last moment, bottled the results. Liverpool came out of nowhere, snuck through, stole the Premier League title from underneath Arteta's nose, and Arsenal finished once again runners-up in the Premier League. I've got to say, Arsenal are becoming a team of nearly men. A team of bottlers, they try to get to finals and they're losing out, and that is something that we're seeing a lot from Mikel Arteta. And I've talked to friends of mine who are Arsenal fans, and they're also sick and fed up of, the way he is managing their team. And I've got to say, he's not doing anything great for them. But again, he loses out on the Premier League title, and Arne Stark comes in first season as Liverpool manager and, of course, takes the reins and wins the Premier League title for Liverpool. So let us know what you think down in the comments below. 2 right out of the 20, so that's a bit depressing, I've got to say. But Forest finishing 7th might have been the wildest twist of the season. When you look at how they finished last season, I wasn't expecting Forest to be, going for European football this season. I was expecting Forest to be down in a relegation battle this season, but they surprised everybody. They got themselves right the way up there. Like I say, at one point, it looked like they were going to get themselves Champions League football, and then dropped off and ended up getting the Conference League football. But Spurs and Man United, absolutely massive letdowns, absolutely disgusting performances by both of them teams, and they should be ashamed of themselves. They absolutely stunk up the Premier League, finishing right the way down the relegation spots. Just absolutely pathetic by them clubs. And of course, Man United won't be playing in Europe next season because of that absolutely disgusting performance that they've put in this season. Spurs have luckily found themselves a way into Europe next season of beating Man U in the Europa League. So they've only just found themselves in there. But time to rethink how I predict next season's Premier League predictions, I think. Or maybe just, flip of a coin, something like that. But how did you get on? Let us know down in the comments below. What was your Premier League predictions? Where you placed teams? Let us know how many you got right, how many you got wrong. But yeah, bit depressing in the end. Only 2 right out of 20, but a lot of misses here and there throughout the predictions, as you could tell. So very, very close in the end. But let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all for the next one. Well, lads.